Let me go to Dave in Florida. Hello, Dave.
Yes.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
You called in for a reason, Dave?
Yeah, I
It's
did.
your turn. You're on.
I just came back from India day before yesterday.
Yes.
And you talk about the crisis in money and them doing away with cash. It's already started in India.
Yeah.
They did away with the 10,000 and the 1,000 rupee note.
That is like that's like a $50 and a $100 bill there.
No, it's like a $7 bill and a $40 bill. It's nothing.
Wow.
Holy cow.
And you should see the lines at the banks. They've got like every little town has like 50, 60 banks and bank branches. The poor people are lined up right out the walls. They gave them just a few days to cash in their money into the smaller notes, which is the 100 rupee note. It's nothing. $6, I think. But anyway, the whole
the 100. Wait. The 100 rupee note is like $1.
No, it's like I think it's $6. You divide it by 62.
Okay.
And it gives you the dollar amount.
Why are they saying they're doing this in India?
Well,
what is the excuse they're using?
The head guy in the country, he's from Gujarat in northwest India, and he says they want to eventually do away with cash and be a cashless society.
Why?
They've already issued credit cards to the very, very poor, and they put so much in their bank account per month. But the working poor are just kicked out on the street, and they're using the excuse to get rid of black money, which they're calling criminals who are holding on to large quantities of cash.
We also heard you can't withdraw any more than $36 a day. Is that accurate? Yeah.
That's correct.
So you can't go to the bank and take out more than $36 a day at the bank. This gives the bank and the government absolute total control.
Yeah, and after like 2 weeks, all of the large bills are done away with.
It's interesting, too. One of the ways that they're thinking they might try to push this, because obviously conservatives would typically be very resistant to this type of thing, but one of the ways they're talking about is you shut down illegal immigration with it. You get rid of the cash. If the cashless society.
Oh, I know. There are going to be all kinds of.
Society.
It's going to help. They're going to say if it's going to stop illegal immigration because they're not going to be able to spend their cash, and we're going to be able to track them, and we're going to be able to solve that problem. There's going to be a lot of arguments.
Everybody who is here a credit card.
Right, and
that's the deal.
And of course, other crimes, drug dealing, and everything else.
Well, and you look around in America. My business is in a poor neighborhood. They already issue credit cards to the very, very poor.
Yes, they do.
Right. Been doing that for a while now.
It's just not a thing in our nation alone. This has started overseas. And they can push it off on the Indian people very easy because they're very gentle and really very giving people.
Yeah. And
they have a tendency to believe anything their government tells them.
Dave, thank you very much. I appreciate your phone call. Now, we're talking about this because this happened this week in India, and it is now happening next week in Australia.
And we should point out, you mentioned the rupee, the currency of India. The actual currency you mentioned earlier was the rupee, which is Jeffy's currency. That's a totally different thing.
I didn't call it a rupee, did I?
You called it the rupee, I believe. And I want to make sure people know that
I'm sitting too close to Jeffy. The rupee, that's all he deals in. How many rupees is that one, Jeffy? This will show you how much of a pawn all of us really are. Because if this happens, your personal sovereignty is pretty gone.
Well, I mean,
you work in the system or you don't. You're either a cog or a wheel in the system, or you're not anything. I mean, I hate to go to Book of Revelation, but you want to talk about the mark of the beast. What is that? There's no buying, selling. You're non-entity unless you receive the mark of the beast. You can't buy or sell or trade or anything. Well, I'm not saying this is the mark of the beast. I'm just saying this is the step towards it.
And let's be clear, you do not hate going to the Book of Revelation.
Thank you.
We should be clear about that. That is a false statement in every way possible.
I am trying to learn from all of my lessons that the things don't have to be, just because they look a certain way, They don't have to end that
It
way.
doesn't necessarily mean
Yes.
what it could lead to.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it will go to that.
Yes.
In fact, all the worst examples we talk about, when you talk about worst case scenarios, this is an important point to me because you do this all the time and we don't always
I'm a
explain it.
catastrophist.
Right.
So I always look to the worst case scenario.
Right. And there have been 100, let's just use this as a generic example. There have been 100, 1,000 people who have started out down the road of Adolf Hitler. Only one of them ended there.
Yes.
The overwhelming majority of possibilities
Some of
turn
them-
out not as bad as the worst case.
Some of them turn out to be Mussolini.
Some of them do, but some of them turn out to be people who are defeated in 4 years and never get heard of again.
Yes.
Some of the people go and have heart attacks and get hit by a bus the next week and nothing
Exactly
happens
right.
from them.
You're
A
exactly
few of them have just turned out to be Pol Pot, Joe
Right.
Stalin, and Chairman Mao.
Right.
Exactly. But how many?
They're not all. Some of them are
all
much, much worse than Hitler.
I'm currently reading Hitler Ascent, this book, which is, it's like 1,000-page, the new, big biography on Hitler. And he was in a group with 1,000 people like him. Mm-hmm. 1,000 people you could have talked to at the time and thought they might turn into Hitler. Almost all of them didn't. In fact, he wound up killing half of them later on. But these things, look, you're talking about a worst-case scenario. It's actually the perfect description of it.
Yes.
It's not something that we think is always going to be common or definitely going to happen. But the point is, when you think the end of the road could be that bad, you try not to walk down the road.
Well, here's why this is why this is so bad. Tell me, what is the average person's understanding of, I don't want a global community? What is the average person saying with that?
I don't want a global community. You mean like
One world
The
government.
globalist.
Okay, yeah.
The average
World
person.
government.
Right.
Yeah, they don't want one world government. They don't want to lose their identity. They don't hate Mexico or Canada, but they
don't
like
want
America.
the country gobbled up into one
Giant
nondescript
thing. And not even one giant evil, end of the world scenario Pol Pot thing. Just, I don't want the EU. The EU isn't necessarily evil or anything else. It's just now I've lost my identity as a German. And one of the things that has really bothered them is they're losing their sovereignty, they're losing their heritage, they're also losing the power of their own currency. So they're just lumped in with everyone else. So Germany is no different than Greece. And whatever Greece does, Germany has to pay for. Well, the Germans don't like that. Now, if you take away the euro and replace it with digits, okay, we're going to get rid of the euro, but we're going to one global currency. Who the hell is for that? Except for the people who make the money or run the banks. Nobody's for that. And that makes me a massive anti-globalist. You are going to cause revolution everywhere. Everywhere. Because I'll tell you how this, I think, happens. One scenario, if I may think out loud. You have another 2008. You can't, the Federal Reserve has already said they cannot print, they have to print for a recession, not a 2008, for a recession. The Fed, if they want to ease monetarily, they will have to print $4 trillion in the first printing and dump it into the system. Okay? Now, obviously, they don't mean printing, I mean digits, but I know this is going to be picked apart in 1,000 different ways, so I want to be careful. They're not actually talking about printing, they're talking about digitizing. To me, there's no difference. They would have to release $4 trillion to the banks to try to pump the economy. That's in a recession. That's according to their own white paper. So what happens if we have a 2008 disruption, which the banks now, there are fewer of them, and they're even bigger than they were, the debt many times greater than it was in 2008, and all of us have debt. There comes a huge economic shock like 2008. You can't stop it this time, except for shutting down all the banks, all of the stock markets, shut the entire system off, and say, okay, we need a cooling period for everybody. And in that cooling period, they will say, okay, how do we turn this back on? Well, you can't turn it back on because once you turn it back on, everybody will run to the banks and take their money out of the banks because they know this system isn't working anymore. My guess is, looking for the next bailout for the banks, is this. look, we're already going to a cashless society. Australia's already done it. Germany is already starting to do it. Sweden is already starting to do it. India is starting to do it. Let's just go cashless. We know that's the future. Just go cashless. Okay, everybody, come Monday, you're going to have to turn all of your cash into the bank. You'll have 10 days to do it. But after 10 days, there won't be any use for any cash. What do you do with the money that you have? Do you turn it into the bank? Or do you go out and you buy everything you can? I go out and I buy everything I can. Mm-hmm. Well, that stimulates the economy now, doesn't it? For a very short period of time, for 10 days, you go out and you buy everything. And especially anything that you don't think you can buy without the bank. So in other words, I go out, I buy bullets. I buy my guns. I buy everything I don't want anybody tracking. Anything that I think that they can say, oh, you know what? Yeah, the system is down and you're not being able to, something's wrong with the system and we can't get that check through. Because remember, that's what Clinton was doing with the background checks. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. During the background checks in the 90s, and ask any gun dealer, the background checks, the computers are down again, and they'd be down forever. And then they'd come back up. Okay, we can process those now. What were they doing? Discouraging sales.
That mysteriously stopped when George W. Bush took.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
It was very weird. Mm-hmm. Stopped the day of the inauguration.
There's plenty of things that they can do to circumvent the Second Amendment without going directly at the Second Amendment, which is futile for them. They know they can't get it done.
But you know what? Are you secure in your papers and in your business and in your person?
No.
If somebody else has all of your money and they can track absolutely everything, it's not like it used to be. They can track absolutely everything instantaneously. Look at Jason Bourne movies.
Oh, my God.
The only way they ever get caught is somebody's used a credit card.
Right.
You want to talk about a Pol Pot coming to power, a Hitler. You think somebody over in Europe isn't going to say, oh, we can track all of those people now. All those Muslims, kill them all. That's the way Hitler dreamed of it, being able to know exactly where everyone was.
I just want to see the academic paper you put out with a footnote that says Bourne identity at the end.
It's true.
Well, it's in Jason Bourne movies. Look at Jason Bourne movies. They always get caught by credit card.
Well, not helpful.
I'm trying not to be.
I mean, we're talking about the loss of donuts, of being able to buy donuts.
Well, why didn't you say that at the beginning?
Without your wife knowing it.
Oh, that's what's happening here today, by the way.
Right? You can't go and buy something like donuts without your wife knowing it.
Well, this is the problem with this.